Hello everyone and welcome back to Self-Care Sunday. Today we are going to be talking about our hands. So our hands are super important. I like to think of them as part of what makes us human is our thumbs, and not just that they're an opposable thumb, but the difference between our hand and a primate, like a chimp's hand, is their thumbs are a lot shorter, so they can't do this opposition where the thumb can touch every finger. And because we can do this, it allows for us to better manipulate objects. So holding tools and doing all of these fine motor skills, that is kind of a uniquely human thing. Our hands are also really sensitive. So because they're how we interact with the world, there's a ton of nerve ending in our hands. So we can feel a lot more sensation in our fingers and our hands than, say, sensation from our back. So if something's touching our back, we might not really have a good understanding or idea of what that is, whereas our hands are really sensitive to very subtle stimulus. So taking care of our hands then is super important because they can become really inflamed. I find a lot of people, especially in the thumb, will get a lot of swelling and inflammation here. So you can start by looking for that, where if you kind of look at your thumb head, and if it's really squishy, like if it feels kind of like a sack of water or water balloon, that's indicating that there is a good amount of fluid that might be stuck in there. Versus if you touch it, what you're looking for is it should feel kind of firm and like it bounces back a little bit. That's the muscle tissue. So take a look at your thumb, even your pinky side. I don't as often find swelling there, but you absolutely can. So check out there and just kind of touching your hand and seeing how firm it is, how maybe soft or squishy, or if there's any tender points. Sometimes if there's fluid in there, then it takes up space, and if you poke in there, it might be extra sensitive because that can push on some of those nerves as well. So once you check about that fluid, check your movement. So bringing the pinky and the thumb together, and then each finger. So just kind of getting some movement into our hands, especially if you spend a lot of your time like sitting at a desk where one hand is just holding that mouse and the other might be moving a little bit more to type, but it can really stiffen up your hands and get some of that fluid to accumulate. So similar to the feet, we want to keep things flowing and keep mobility and especially dexterity, because we're almost always using our hands in pretty much everything that we do. So yeah, once you kind of check all of this out, let's look specifically at our thumb. So whether you found some swelling or not, this could help to push some of that out. What you're going to look for is pinching kind of between the thumb and the first finger. So there's this little space right here, which you might find is kind of squishy, or maybe it's pretty hard. Just kind of see what you feel. And take your other hand, your thumb and your pointer finger, and just gently pinch that space. So not too hard, because again, it might be sensitive. And just give a little bit of pressure. Try to let the arm relax. If you notice you're like holding tension in your shoulder. And then just kind of gently squeeze, pinching there, and breathe. So if we forget to breathe while we're doing any of these mobility techniques, then we're kind of fighting ourselves. We're trying to get it to relax and move, but if we're tensed and holding our breath, it's not going to go. So maybe you can kind of gently play with spreading the fingers a little bit here and then relaxing. So we're kind of pinning and stretching, gently moving that thumb around a little bit. And you could kind of gently pull if that feels okay. So you're kind of pinching and pulling. So you're moving some fluid, you're mobilizing that tissue. You could also, if it feels good, make some little circles in there as well. Just trying to gently massage in here, because a lot of us too, our thumbs tend to get kind of stuck in this position from always grasping, holding. And so I find a lot of times I need to help people kind of open up their thumb so that their hand can spread out a little bit more. So that's kind of what you're trying to do here. And you can kind of do the same thing to your thumb pad here. You kind of wrap your fingers around that thumb pad and just kind of very gently on the surface kind of rake. So like even right now, I can feel a little bit of fluid moving on the surface as I kind of pull that thumb gently open. And again, being gentle. If it's painful, go a little bit lighter. If it's still painful and your body just like, I don't like this, respect that and just leave it alone for now. Maybe just move it around, stretch it a little bit. And then move that thumb around a little bit. Maybe check that opposition again and see if that feels any different at all for you. Then similar to what we did with the toes last week, you can also kind of grab your fingers. Again, trying to let the shoulder relax. And so kind of grab my thumb. I'm just gonna kind of move it around a little bit. So mobilizing it, but passively. So I'm not moving my thumb with my thumb. I'm moving my thumb with my other hand. So my thumb that is being mobilized is nice and relaxed. As I'm just kind of making some little circles, maybe pulling on that joint a little bit. And you might feel like little clicks or pops as you kind of open up some of that joint space. And then go for the same thing with each finger. So then go to the pointer finger. You can gently pull on that, make some little circles, or kind of move side to side. And just kind of gently do that with each one. So we're just trying to get a little bit more hydration to these as well. Sometimes the fascia and the muscle can dry out a little bit if it hasn't been mobilized. And then down to that pinky. Good. And maybe just kind of open and close the hand a few times. So get those muscles active. That muscle engagement can also help with moving fluid out. Good. What you can also use is like a tool. So if you have a ball, so I've got a little racket ball here. We often use lacrosse balls in this clinic for mobilization, which are great, but they can be a little bit too hard or too much on the hands. So I personally prefer something a little bit softer, so this racket ball has a little bit more squish compared to a lacrosse ball. If you only have like a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball or something harder, you can use that. I just wouldn't push really hard, just be gentle with it. So sometimes you can get both hands at once with this, so kind of put the ball in between, and just kind of make little circles around the whole palm. And again, you're trying to not like tense the fingers too much and put all this effort into it. Let it be relaxed and gentle. So the shoulders stay relaxed. You're breathing as you do this. And you can also do this just against like the floor or a wall where you're just doing gentle circles. And then if there's any specific points, again, maybe it's the thumb, maybe it's around one of the other fingers where you feel like you want to hang out there a little bit, then you can just gently press. And you can do that again with both together as well. So maybe I'm going to put that ball right in between both of my thumb pads and just gently press and breathe here. Another great spot is the center of the palm. So getting right into the middle, putting both hands together at the center, and then gently pressing there. And then maybe making some little circles. It's really just explore, have fun with it, see what calls to you, where does your hand want you to go, and then when you go to the other side, you might notice something completely different, especially because most of us are one hand dominant, so you'll tend to use one more than the other. So maybe you notice a difference between your dominant hand and your less dominant hand that maybe you don't use as often. So one might be more swollen, one might be more stiff, and it's just good to have that information. So then, you know, maybe your dominant hand is a little bit more mobile, but more full of fluid, and your non-dominant hand might be a little bit more stiff. So then they both need love, but maybe a little bit in different ways, right? Mobilize some fluid versus really get in there and mobilize like the fascia or the joints itself. So everything we did on the first hand, we do the same thing to the other hand. So getting into that thumb pad, gently pulling on the fingers a little bit, and just seeing how that feels and exploring the two of those, and then seeing how your hands feel afterwards. Okay, then the last thing I'll add is doing a little bit of stretch. So once we kind of got some of our fluid moving better, a good way to stretch, a lot of those muscles, so there's little muscles in the hand that only exist in the hand, but there's other muscles that control the fingers and the wrist that come out of your forearm. So getting a stretch into the whole forearm. So if you turn your palm facing up and then let the hand drop down, you can use your other hand onto your palm and just very gently pull back. So you don't want to crank on it. You don't want it to piss off your wrist. And then just breathe here. And what you should feel is a gentle stretch along the top of the forearm here. And depending on your arm, your tension, where you hold things, you might feel the stretch in different places, and that's okay. You just don't want to overstretch, and you don't want to be in pain, and you want to make sure you can breathe, so don't hold your breath. And then you can try going the other way to get those wrist extensors. So these are the ones that if you do a lot of gripping, these tend to get more pissed off. So let's gently stretch that. So it's just reverse, flipping the palm over, bring the hand down, and then put a little gentle pressure here and just breathe. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. And again, comparing, because we're not necessarily symmetrical creatures. And so having an idea of kind of where some of your own asymmetries lie can be important in trying to get them to be a little bit more symmetrical. So that's the start to kind of taking care of those hands. If you are interested in learning more from us, we are having 2 upcoming workshops. So there's the self-massage for health and wellness part 2 or level 2, that if you've taken the first one with our massage therapist Christine, then you can take the second one. That is going to be on April 28th, this Sunday, at 10 o'clock to 12 here at 3 Pillars. And then I will be doing a Art and Science of Relaxation, which is a restorative yoga and meditation workshop that will be on Sunday, May 19th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. here at 3 Pillars. And you can sign up for these online. But if you have any questions, please let us know, and enjoy your Sunday, your self-care, and your new fun with your hands.